You asked, we listened. Finally, trade trees are back. I'm Steve Dangle, and this is another Trade Tree, where we take a look at a trade that happened at some point in NHL history and look at how it evolved over time. Some of them are great, some of them are disasters, some of them looked one way and then evolved into another, and some are still going today. And one of the most popular requests we had was Jarome Iginla. And so we looked. Do we look at the trade that sent Jarome Iginla from the Calgary Flames to the Pittsburgh Penguins near the end of his career? No. Oh, I know. We'll go way back in time and we'll do Jarome Iginla, who was drafted by the Dallas Stars, getting traded to the Flames for Joe Nieuwendyk. And I'll be honest, that was the original plan because that's where I thought the trade tree began. But one day, listening to 31 Thoughts with Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman, I discovered this trade tree started a long time ago. 1985 to be specific. And the red flag right there is that Jarome Iginla wasn't drafted until a decade later. Unofficially, this is the Jarome Iginla trade tree. Officially, it is the Kent Nilsson trade tree. So let's answer the first and most obvious question. Who the heck is Kent Nilsson? For some of you, the answer is going to be quite obvious because back in the day, Kent Nilsson was a star in the National Hockey League. For others, like me for example, it's not as obvious because when this trade happened, I wasn't even alive. Kent Nilsson was born in Sweden in 1956, and 20 years later, he was drafted twice in the same year. He went in the second round, 11th overall in the WHA draft to the Toronto Toros, but also in the fourth round, 64th overall in the NHL draft to the Atlanta Flames. Near the end of the 70s, he actually did play a couple seasons in the WHA with the Winnipeg Jets, as a matter of fact, before the 1979-1980 season when he joined the Flames in Atlanta and was their leading scorer. He led the Atlanta Flames with 93 points, the next closest guy had 77, and 40 goals, the next closest guy had 31. He was good. The following season, the Atlanta Flames became the Calgary Flames, and he was even better. He led the Calgary Flames with 131 points, and the next closest guy had 83. He also had 49 goals, ooh, so close to 50, but the next closest Flame didn't even hit 40. It was 38. He was with the Atlanta Flames for one season and the Calgary Flames for 5, and well over a point a game in each of those 6 seasons. Kent Nilsson was a star. Until one day, June 15th, 1985, the Calgary Flames said, what if you were literally a star? A North Star to be specific. And that's when it happened. We have a trade to announce. Kent Nilsson, along with a third-round pick in 1986, went to an NHL team called the Minnesota North Stars. Calgary, in exchange, received a second-round pick in 1985 and a second-round pick in 1987. So, if this is your first trade tree, that's our base. We have 4 branches to go down to start. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything for you when I say 3 of them are pretty small. One of them, oh, it's big. Because Kent Nilsson only really spent a cup of coffee with the Minnesota North Stars parts of 2 seasons. In 61 games in his first season, he had a very respectable 60 points, but his goal scoring dropped way off with only 16. The next season, he actually had a bit of a better pace. In just 44 games, he had 13 goals and 46 points. After that, Nilsson was traded to the Edmonton Oilers for future considerations. Now, the Edmonton Oilers are not officially part of this trade tree, right? Because it's just between Minnesota and Calgary. However, I feel like I should mention that Edmonton won that trade. Why? Well, because in 21 Stanley Cup playoff games in 1987, Nilsson had 19 points and the Oilers won the 1987 Stanley Cup. Simply put, Kent Nilsson is a Stanley Cup champion. So what did Minnesota get? You only said future considerations. I know. I will say on behalf of the staff that work on these trade trees here that future considerations are the bane of our existence because they are often very difficult to find. But thanks to NHLTradeTracker.com, those future considerations appear to be cash, which you can't do anymore. Sort of, kind of, ask Tampa. But also a second round pick in 1987. And with that second rounder in 1987, the Minnesota North Stars, who I'm sure I'm going to call the Minnesota Wild a few times in this video, selected defenseman Link Gates, who wasn't with them for very long. Ironically, he would end up being an Oiler later in his career anyway, but again, just for a cup of coffee. Now I want coffee. Okay, so that's that branch done. What about the third rounder that Minnesota got from Calgary in the initial Kent Nilsson deal? Minnesota used that pick to select a guy named Brad Turner, who only played 3 games in the NHL, and it wasn't with them, it was with the Islanders. So that's that then for Minnesota's half of the tree. That was pretty quick. So yeah, they did get a season and a half out of Kent Nilsson out of the deal, but that's about it. What Calgary Calgary got in this trade tree is 2 second-round picks, which translates to magic beans, which are the best. Remember, there was a pick in 1985 and a pick in 1987. We're gonna start with the 87 second-rounder. That draft pick, 25th overall, back in the day a 25th overall pick was in the second round, the Flames selected Stéphane Matteau. And you might be like, Stéphane Matteau, I know that name. That's a guy in the NHL today, isn't it? Yes, there is actually a guy named Stéphane Matteau in the NHL right now, playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets this past season. But no, we're not talking about him. Different guy, same name, retired in 2003. He had an okay rookie season in 1990-91 with the Calgary Flames, scoring 15 goals. But the following season, he was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for defenseman Trent Yawney. Yawney didn't exactly light it up with a ton of points, but he was a defenseman after all, playing 274 games for the Flames. That's usually pretty good value in these trade trees. But then Trent Yawney was not traded by the Calgary Flames, which means we're done 3 of the 4 branches of this tree already. Which brings us to the final branch, the second rounder that Calgary got from Minnesota in 1985, Joe Nieuwendyk. When I say this was a fantastic pick by the Calgary Flames, I really do mean it's an all-timer. Because Nieuwendyk was picked in the second round, 27th overall in 1985. But despite 26 guys going before Nieuwendyk in the 1985 draft, he led the entire draft class in games played with 1,257. In goals with 564. The next closest guy was the first overall pick from that draft, Wendell Clark, with 330. The most assists in that draft class with 562, nearly 100 more than the next closest guy, Igor Larionov. And Joe Nieuwendyk led the 1985 draft class with 1,126 points in his career. The next closest player, Ulf Dahlin, with 655. If you divided Joe Nieuwendyk's career point total in half, he still would have finished 6th among the 1985 draft class, just 1 point behind Wendell Clark. Nieuwendyk was a beast right from the beginning, winning the 1988 Calder Trophy with 55 goals and 92 points in 75 games. The next closest rookie was Ray Shepherd with 65 points. Nieuwendyk was head and shoulders above everybody else. I'm skipping ahead here. We know Nieuwendyk was a great player with the Dallas Stars, but he actually played most of his career with the Calgary Flames, 577 games, 314 goals, 302 assists, 616 points. He was truly great. His playoff totals weren't bad either. 32 goals, 28 assists for 60 points in 66 Stanley Cup playoff games. And I should probably mention he had 10 goals and 4 assists for 14 points in 22 games in 1989 when he helped the Calgary Flames win the 1989 Stanley Cup. So that's all we need to see here, right? Calgary won this deal, won this deal, won this deal. Calgary got a Calder winner, a Hockey Hall of Famer, a Stanley Cup champion. They won the Stanley Cup. Surely they won this deal. Minnesota got practically nothing. Yeah, but life's kind of funny, isn't it? Because this trade tree begins with a player whose team moved cities. Kent Nilsson started with the Atlanta Flames, who then became the Calgary Flames. Well, the Minnesota North Stars, who originally traded the draft pick to Calgary, who selected Joe Nieuwendyk, they move to Dallas and they become the Dallas Stars and then acquire Joe Nieuwendyk. The trade was Joe Nieuwendyk to the Dallas Stars in exchange for Jarome Iginla and Corey Millen. Now, absolutely no disrespect to Corey Millen. He had 40 points in 92 games with the Calgary Flames, but we are here to talk about one player. What's interesting to me is Dallas at least had some idea that Jarome Iginla was special. If they didn't, they wouldn't have selected him 11th overall in 1995. And a lot of people don't seem to realize that's who selected Jarome Iginla. He was a draft pick of the Dallas Stars. Honestly, he's one of the best picks they ever made. He finished with 1,300 career points, which leads all of the 1995 draft class in points. No one else even hit 1,000, and he had 625 career NHL goals. Only Shane Doan surpassed 400 with 402. Yeah, no, you heard that correctly. Jarome Iginla had more than 200 more goals than the next closest guy in his draft class. Jarome Iginla is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He won the Rocket Richard Trophy as the league's leading goal scorer twice. He won the NHL scoring title by winning the Art Ross in 2002. He won the 2004 King Clancy Award, the 2009 Mark Messier Award. His Olympic career with Team Canada, which one do you want to talk about? You want to talk about 2002 in Salt Lake, where he was magnificent, or 2010, where he gave the puck to Sidney Crosby for the golden goal? One of the greatest goals for Canada in international play ever. 1,219 career games played with the Calgary Flames alone, including 525 goals. 1,095 of the 1,300 points Iginla scored in his NHL career were as a member of the Calgary Flames. For those of you getting your calculators out, that's about 84% of his career points were with the Calgary Flames. Jarome Iginla was and always will be a Calgary Flame, and perhaps the pinnacle of his time with the Calgary Flames, taking the team all the way to the 2004 Stanley Cup Final, where he was magnificent. 13 goals, 9 assists for 22 points in 26 Stanley Cup playoff games during that run, fighting Vincent Lecavalier, helping set up goals with no bucket. He was the best player to watch in 2004. He was one of my favorites, and I didn't even cheer for the Calgary Flames. His leadership, his ferocity, his goal-scoring ability, and skill, everything about Jarome Iginla is everything every Canadian was taught to love about hockey growing up. Like I said, he was and always will be a Calgary Flame for those reasons, but he was not always Calgary Flame. Toward the end of his career, with his abilities winding down, and even quicker the abilities of the Calgary Flames winding down, Iginla was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, it was rather close, because it was even reported as officially done that Jarome Iginla was traded to the Boston Bruins. You see, Iginla got to steer the boat a little bit. He got to sort of choose where he wanted to end up, and the Bruins were close, and funny enough, they did end up signing him, but Jarome Iginla chose the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's where he was traded. And the trade was as follows. Jarome Iginla to the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he wore powder blue, and it will forever be really weird, for Kenny Agostino, Ben Hanowski, and a first-round pick in 2013. Now, the reason I pointed out that the Calgary Flames were a little bit limited in the places they could trade Jarome Iginla is because this trade stinks. Kenny Agostino played 10 games for the Flames, scored 1 goal, 1 assist. Wow, that was fast. Ben Hanowski, 16 games played, 1 goal, 2 assists, AHL, Germany, done. And the pick that the Flames got from the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2019 wasn't until 29th overall, because Iginla's Pittsburgh Penguins made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Final, where they were promptly swept by the Boston Bruins, who Iginla would not go to. It's kind of ironic, but we ignore it because we like him. And with that 29th overall pick in 2013, the Calgary Flames select Morgan Klimchuk, who played 1 game. 1. And Morgan Klimchuk was later traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for defenseman Andrew Nilsson, who's in the AHL. And that, my friends, is how this trade tree ends. Now, I know, I got a bunch of Dallas Stars fans screaming at the screen right now. That is absolutely not how this trade tree ends. Well, you're right, I am neglecting to mention a few key details. Because Joe Nieuwendyk was a wonderful member of the Dallas Stars, like genuinely a wonderful member of the Dallas Stars, but he did not have the same career in Dallas that Jarome Iginla had in Calgary. But you know what Joe Nieuwendyk did in Dallas that Iginla did not do in Calgary? Won the Stanley Cup. 11 goals en route to the 1999 Stanley Cup. You might remember that as the Stanley Cup Final, Brett Hull, something about a toe, and Buffalo got mad for some reason. I can't actually remember why. But it would be very easy to look at this trade tree, because you gotta remember, it's the trade from 1985, the Kent Nilsson trade. It'd be very easy to look at this and go, the Stars are idiots, and the Flames are geniuses. And admittedly, this trade worked out terrible for Minnesota, but just fine for Dallas, because they ended up getting Nieuwendyk back and winning the Stanley Cup. The other rather large asterisk here is Stars fans might be saying, wait a moment, this trade tree is not done, because the Dallas Stars did end up trading Joe Nieuwendyk. In 2002, the Dallas Stars acquired Jason Arnott, Randy McKay, and a first-rounder who turned into Danny Paille in exchange for Jamie Langenbrunner and Joe Nieuwendyk, and they ended up winning a cup in New Jersey. What I would say, though, that is not technically part of this trade tree. Because if you look at the full trade tree graphic here, first of all, the original team was Minnesota, this team is Dallas. But not for that reason. This trade is on the Calgary Flames side of the tree. It's not that this trade is irrelevant, it's highly relevant, but is it part of this tree? I say no. It's a large enough deal that it could certainly be its own tree, but that is for another trade tree on another day. But this trade, trading Kent Nilsson, who the Calgary Flames didn't even draft, that was the Atlanta Flames. One of the most impactful deals in the team's history. Trading Kent Nilsson played an integral part in bringing the Stanley Cup to Calgary in 1989, and then years later, bringing the team the greatest player they've ever known. So, I ask you, what are your thoughts on this trade tree? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. Maybe you can all speculate about what the next trade tree is going to be, because we have a lot coming over the next few weeks. But for now, that is it for this trade tree. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video, click subscribe if you really liked it, tell all your friends,